Hey, what's up guys? Welcome back to the Breakdown Automotive. Today we're filming with the 2017 Dodge Charger SRT. But before we go ahead and jump into the video, I just want to give a huge thanks to Javian at Chrysler Dodge Jeep Ram in Greeneville, Tennessee. If you're looking to buy a new car, go ahead and check him out. His info will be down in the description below and also up on the screen here. But anyway, let's go ahead and jump into the video about the 2017 Dodge Charger SRT. One more quick note, if you enjoy automotive content, don't forget to subscribe to our channel, and also make sure to leave a thumbs up on this video if you enjoy. But for now, let's go ahead and jump into the overview. To start off with, this generation Challenger has been with us for a few years now, and it has seen a few body style updates since it came out. However, this version, the 2017 behind me, is the best looking one that they have ever produced. I was never a huge fan of muscle cars, but I'm completely convinced that a muscle car may very well be my next car. I love the Challenger, and I love the Charger behind me for all of the new tech that it offers, even compared to the 2017 Challenger I did in the last video. In this video, we're going to go ahead and break down some of the key features that I love most about the 2017 Charger with the 392 Hemi. I do want to say, I think this car is beautiful. I still think the Challenger is the better looking car, but overall the Charger is the best muscle car on the market today for all of the tech and all of the features that it has. While it may not be a Hellcat, it certainly can compete with just about anything else out there, minus the Hellcat, and it's also the best looking family sedan on the market today. I know Mercedes has a great E-Class and BMW has the 5 Series, Toyota has the Camry, but let's face it, none of them look that good. None of them look that striking, and none of them look that muscular. The Charger has kept its unique shape and unique look, whereas Toyota and Honda and BMW and Mercedes have gone in a completely different direction, while the Charger has stayed to its roots. While it may be a 4-door compared to the 2-door model that was back out years and years and years ago, this is still the best looking sedan on the market today. One of the best features of the Charger behind me are the Brembo Brake. This engine needs some huge brakes to stop this monstrosity from slamming into the car in front of you after you do a quick launch, because this thing is so fast. On top of that, just look at it. It is seriously the most beautiful sedan on the market today, and on top of that, there's really nothing I dislike about it. I suppose if I had to complain about something, it would be that the rear seats are too small, but come on, what do you expect? You know what I love most about the Charger though compared to the Challenger? The sound. While the Challenger sounded great, had a very muscular sound to it, the Charger still sounds just a little bit better, and it mainly comes down to the more powerful engine, but just listen to it. Once you get into the Charger though, the beautiful sounding V8 doesn't end there. I know it's a feature most cars have now, but the remote start in this car is so much fun. When you can start up the car and walk up to it, just listening to that Hemi V8 roar, it is truly one of the most surreal experiences I've had. I know this car is technically just a Charger, but it's so much more than that. This thing, while it may have some cheap plastics and some questionable gear selectors, does have the best transmission I've experienced in a long time, and it is still the best sounding V8 that I've been able to listen to. I thought the Challenger I did last week was good, but no, this Charger is at least 10 times as good. I love the sound of the V8 rumble in this car, but let's go ahead and go over some of the crazy things about the interior. Something I really liked about the Challenger I drove last week was that the gauge dials seemed more retro. However, in the Charger, they still have the retro feel, but with more modern touches. For example, you have a much better display in the Charger than you did in the Challenger, and the overall configuration of everything just makes quite a bit more sense than it did in the Challenger. Now I get it, the Challenger is for the person who has so much money that they just want a fast weekend car, but the Charger is something that you seriously can drive every single day and never get tired of it, especially when you hear the huge V8 rumble. I absolutely am in love with the way the Charger sounds. One thing I'm not too fond of though is the push on and off parking brake. I think they kind of skipped out on a cool feature they could have up here, even by just having an electronic parking brake that most cars have now. But with that said, when you come over here to SRT, you kind of forget about the parking brake. Now when you go into SRT mode, you have the option to configure the transmission, the paddle shifters, the traction control, the suspension, and the steering all in different ways. In fact, fact, you have default, custom, sport, and track. So on track, you have everything set to track and the paddle shifters turned on. In sport, you have everything set to sport. And in custom, you have the ability to come in and set up everything the way you want it. So let's say you wanted the transmission to be in sport mode, but you wanted the paddle shifters to be on. On top of that, let's say you wanted more traction control than normal, and let's say you wanted your suspension in track mode. Then you can also come over here and have your steering in sport mode, so it's not so tight that you can't handle it, but it's not so loose that you feel like you're driving a Lincoln Town Car. This is absolutely amazing to me. This technology alone in the Uconnect system makes me feel like the Range Rover is an outdated POS. On top of that, you have one of my favorite features, which is a weather map. Now, this isn't something that I ever thought I would really care for in a car, but I really like it. Now, it's not the most intuitive thing in the world, but come on, it's a weather map in a car. On top of that, you have the navigation over here, which is probably one of the more intuitive navigation systems that I've seen in a while. You've got the pinch to zoom, and it's really easy to drag and drop everything around. On top of that, you can hold down and then set your destination to that place that you hold. And once you hit go, it's actually a really good navigation system, which is good considering this is a car that you will use for daily driving. Now, the only problem I see from here is trying to turn the navigation off, in which it takes a few steps to get to, but I suppose once you get it, you really understand what's going on. You also have a phenomenal radio system and sound speakers in the car, and the media infotainment allows you to plug in USB, auxiliary, and Bluetooth. For climate, it's pretty much the basic climate. You have heated and ventilated seats, heated seats in the back, and then you have your Uconnect apps. Now, there's nothing too special about the Uconnect apps, but you do have the ability to come in here and view the performance pages, which will load up the SRT performance pages. Once you're here, you can come down to timers. You can view your launch control, your quarter mile times, everything about the car, your braking distance. You have your gauges for your oil temperature and coolant temperature, on top of having gauges in your center control right here. Then you have gauges 2, which shows battery voltage, intake air temperature, and trans temperature, and my personal favorite, the G-force gauge. Then down here you also have engine, so you can see more stuff like the power, the torque, the oil pressure, and the gear that you're in. That's not my favorite. I think my favorite is G-force. The home button is pretty sexy too, where you can just stare at a picture of your SRT Charger. What makes it even better is you can come up here and change the picture. So let's say you're driving down the road and want to see what other people are looking at, you can do just that. It's a pretty weird feature, but it's one that I really appreciate Dodge putting into the Charger. On top of that, more of the luxury features this has, you have radar guided adaptive cruise control, as well as paddle shifters that, much like the Challenger, feel a little weird. They feel cheap, they don't really feel like they're connected to anything, and you kind of feel like you're pressing a joystick on a PlayStation 2. They're not my favorite paddle shifters in the world, but they're far from horrible. The main thing I don't like is the layout, but they've had to lay them out in a weird way, because in Fiat Chrysler vehicles, you have the radio controls on the back of the steering wheel, as well as the ability to select a different channel. Now, I have to be honest, it's a little weird switching the paddle shifter and trying to change the radio station, because they are right on top of each other, but that's just a little complaint. A bigger complaint that I have about the Charger is just how cheap this looks. This looks straight out of some cheap $15,000 car. Now, you do have the launch control setting right here, and you have the SRT button, and aside from that, it's basic climate controls without any dials to tell you the temperature. That is a bit of a disappointment for this car. I expected a little bit more than just this cheap little plastic insert, as well as this. Much like in the Challenger I drove, the trim doesn't feel too high quality, and things just don't line up the way they should. Now, I'm not saying it's a bad car, and most of the interior lines up. However, then you see this bulge right here, and it just doesn't make sense. What makes up for it, though, is the seats. Look at these beautiful SRT labeled seats with the red contrast seatbelt, as well as the interior stitching and the door panel. This is something you don't get in most cars, and I love it. I love the stitching. I wish it had contrast stitching like it does in the seats down here, but still, that is beautiful. Another thing I'm not too fond of is the gear selector. While everything with it works fine, it just isn't too pretty. I understand it's a throwback to the retro Challenger and Charger, but I still just don't like it too much. One thing I do like, though, it sounds shocking. Anyway, guys, thanks for watching this video on the 2017 Dodge Charger SRT. I hope you enjoyed. If you did, leave a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel for more automotive content with beautiful cars like this. Also, again, a huge thanks to Javian Harris at Chrysler Dodge Jeep Ram. Give him a call if you're looking for a new car. I recommend buying this, even if it is 10 grand more than my favorite Challenger, but we'll ignore that.